Rhythm refers to a recurring pattern or movement found in music, poetry, dance, and even nature, characterized by a regular succession of strong and weak elements. It often features an ordered alteration of contrasting elements, creating a sense of flow and movement. So what is the meaning of this word in football, and why is it so important to Thomas Tuchel? Tuchel stated ahead of their first game, we should be brave enough to play like an England squad, talking about implementing a direct and attacking style to reflect the values of the strongest league in the world. The England manager has also stated, we are not Argentina, we are not Spain. We can adapt to stuff, but the DNA is clearly English. It means it's tough and ready to fight. But what does all of this mean for Thomas Tuchel's England side and the first team and the iteration of that team that we're going to see this weekend? So how will Thomas Tuchel's first team look? We've got the squad up here on the tactics board, all 26 names available, and we're going to sort of dissect our way through how we think he might set up in his first game, but we'll sort of go across both games. I think something really interesting is the style of play that Tuchel said he's going to play, right? And even Harry Kane has said this week he wants a lot of the ball in the opposition half, a lot of counter pressing. He expects Kane to be the one in the box, and he's already spoken about getting a lot of balls into the box. So I think a lot of these things are important to sort of take into account. And the opposition, obviously, being Albania, and of course, who was the other one? I've drawn a blank. But being the opposition that we've got, I think this is going to be quite an aggressive sort of from the off camp. And what I mean by that is I don't think we're going to see the back five, and I think we are going to see it eventually, but I don't think we're going to see it straight away. I think what we're going to see in this camp is more of a 4-3-3/4-2-3-1. Very aggressive. Like Tuchel said, he wants to sort of embody the Premier League with the physicality, the direct speed, the attacks, and even the counter-pressing in the sort of the opposition half, something that's become very sort of prevalent in the game. We've even heard Tuchel often sort of speaks about rhythm, and Guardiola even recently has said that the new sort of tactical wave in the meta is about raising that rhythm. And you've seen that through the likes, I mean, he sort of alluded to Arne Slot, he alluded to Eddie Howe's Newcastle, he alluded to Fabian Hertz's Brighton, I believe, and then obviously Andoni Iraola, his Bournemouth side. So I think we're going to see quite a lot of this sort of team, especially without the likes of Palmer, who isn't with the squad. I think you can even more so lean into that sort of physical side of things. So let's just start with Pickford in goal. I'd love to see Trafford, but I do think we're going to see Pickford in goal. Trafford's one for the future. I'd like to see him get some minutes, but Pickford is going to be the number one. So let's just start with Pickford there. And obviously, anything could happen, but we're just going to theorise and go off what we think. Now, with a lot of these options at the back, I think it's really interesting. I think Gurhey is going to start. So I'm going to take out Konsa and Kwanzaa. I think either of Burn or Colwell could start. I think we might see Colwell first. But having said that, what keeps crossing my mind is I think even though Tuchel have him quite sort of high up on the list to play, Burn's an interesting one because he's coming off such a good week that I almost think there's a likelihood or like a good chance that you play Burn to sort of ride that wave and sort of bring in that real feel good, because like Tuchel sort of always alludes to with rhythm and the excitement of playing for England, I think these sort of things to ensure that the energy is high throughout the team, and energy is an important word because even in those press conferences, Tuchel's sort of alluding to the fact that one tackle, one duel, one sort of fast action, it can get the crowd on side. And once the crowd's on side, energy starts to reverberate through the stadium. And it's like when a home team is playing at home and they get the crowd behind them. A lot of teams, they think to take the sting out of the game to quiet the crowd down, because it does add to the energy that you're giving into the game and feeding into the players. So I do think someone like Burn, coming off a good week, could actually start alongside Gurhey to begin with. Now these two, I think we're going to see all four of the fullbacks, and I think they're all going to play one game. That would be my guess. So either one of Lewis Skelly and Livramento, I think, works really well for what we're trying to say about that intensity and that sort of that tenacity to win the ball back and sort of bring energy to the side. I do think we'll see Livramento starting, and I think a good sort of mix with that is that you have this link that you've already got from Newcastle, and which leads me, we'll talk about the left wing in a minute, but I think that's a good thing as well to have those relationships, because those sort of rhythms that come from club football into international football, it can make a difference. And I think those sort of relationships to bring that to the table, again, important in that first camp. So I do think we're going to see that as the back three. But then going over to the right back, I think he'll start with Reece at right back, and I think Walker maybe plays the second game. Again, I think a bit like Henderson. I think he's sort of in the squad because he can do a job more so than Henderson in terms of doing a job. But I think he's also there for sort of standards and sort of the experience that he brings and having that right balance between the youth and the experience. So I'm expecting James to start, and then the second game maybe Lewis, Skelly, and Walker to sort of switch around and have that. So let's say that's the back five. Rice he's pretty much the only six in the squad. Wharton for me should have been should have been called up, but he wasn't. He has been since. I think he has since trained with the first team, coming up from the under-21s to train with the firsts. He needs to be a big part. I'll make an entirely different video speaking about him because I do think he's so important to England's future and to have that option. But Rice is obviously going to start. Again, he embodies what we're talking about here with those jewels and bringing that energy in the middle of the park, being that physical, sort of embodying the Premier League. He will bring you a lot of that energy and a lot of that fight and determination and excitement in the middle of the park. Now, Bellingham is another interesting one because we're going to speak about why he could play in the 10, but I'm going to move Henderson and Jones because I would love to see, especially with this sort of emphasis that we're seeing from Tuchel about this physicality and these tendencies to counter press high, win duels and break and be direct. I think having two players like Rice and Bellingham in this side. Now, passing wise, I think at that point you're leaning on your Gurheys if Colwell's in, you're leaning on Trent or James if they're in there to be your sort of build up players because Rice isn't like that. Neither of these players without Wharton in there are your sort of deep passers. Again, Trent's not even in the squad for that either because he's sort of out at the minute. Well, sort of, he is out. So I do think having these two in here to sort of provide that energy, and I keep going back to energy and rhythm and all these things because I think those are key words within sort of what Tuchel's trying to integrate. And I think he wants every single player to be fighting and to not really have to carry anyone. If anybody's going to be carried in this team, I think it's going to be Kane in terms of that out of possession workload. I think everybody else is going to have to put in their work. And even Kane's going to have his job in doing that, sort of looking to press or looking to sort of mould and trap one side of the pitch so that the counter press works better and so that the traps work better when out of possession. So we're going to say Bellingham to start in here. Another thing I wouldn't mind seeing is Jones in there, though, if Bellingham starts further forward, because, again, he brings that same box-to-box energy, duels. That's what I want in the middle of the park if you're talking about an England side to compete and to be excited about and be direct. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Again, I think Rashford will play in this international break, but I think it's nailed. It has to be Gordon. Again, this... Oh, let me get this... Let me get the line... Like this, I think this sort of link just perfect. I think that's really interesting. And also, just really something quickly to point out, if Burn didn't play and Colwell did, that would be an entire Cobham backline. And being a Chelsea fan and having Thomas Tuchel as our England manager now, that's quite an exciting sort of prospect for me. But anyway, back to Dan Burn, and we sort of had a big chat about why he could be integrated in this game and how it could help. Gordon, again, same thing. He's direct. He'll run in behind. And let's show that Kane's going to be the striker. And as you can see here, I've got Bowen out here. So let's leave the 10s for a minute. And let's just discuss sort of again, another thing that Kane said was, there are no real rules to how I play. He sees me as the number 9, the guy to score the goals. There were times when I could drop when we were building up to link play and get us out of pressure. And if I did get the ball, there was a lot of emphasis on using the 10s and the wingers to run in behind. So again, really important that these players are going to make those runs. And that's what you're going to get from Gordon. That's what you're going to get from Bowen. They're also very hard working off the ball. So they're going to counter press. They can sort of have those dual responsibilities to jump and to cover and even to sort of press inside and like go alongside Kane if they need to. Really, really important for that intensity in that press. So I think these two are going to be really important. You could see Rashford on the right. And there's another player that I'm going to point out in a minute that I think I'd really like to see him on the right. And I'm going to speak about why in a minute. Now, the 10s. Let's move the 10s here, because I think I would like to see a lot of these play. But I think Foden for the first game, again, it's sort of going to be without Palmer. I think having these two together and having that sort of interconnectivity, and then having Bellingham a bit deeper who can sort of maraud into those positions. Again, Bowen who can attack the box, Gordon who can attack the box. You've got... Oh, those made those themselves. Make those runs and sort of help Kane and Foden to sort of link and have that dynamic. That's something I'm quite excited to see in the first game. That's what I would expect. Now, what I would love to see, and I don't know whether we would, I would love to see Morgan Rogers start on this right-hand side instead of Bowen. And I like Bowen, and I think for the exact reason of sort of Gordon, intensity, ability to go both ways, works hard, he does embody that English spirit. But I would love to see Rogers because he can drift inside and still create that box here. The power and carrying in that box midfield, which then allows James to. Now, we haven't seen this at Chelsea, which is a whole different thing because of his sort of injury. So it doesn't have to be too aggressive. And hopefully we'll have enough of the ball that he doesn't have to keep sort of doing these marauding runs back, forth. And he can almost camp up a little bit and sort of have this starting position here to make those runs. But I think that this shape could be really interesting. Now, again, Livramento will probably push up higher. And again, if James is a bit deeper, Rogers can sort of be that inside where he can go between the two because he's got the athleticism to go on the outside, but he's also really good in the middle of the park. And again, I think that box just gives you so much dual potential and second balls and direct balls and just winning those duels to then attack directly. I think with those four in the middle of the park, again, Foden not as much so, but with Rogers and just his build and these two in their sort of ground covering athleticism, to then win the ball and carry forward and be direct. And this is something I want to see from Gibbs White as well, if we see Gibbs White at some point in the 10. Again, the power in that midfield is ridiculous. And I think it's something that you can really get excited about, which is why Bellingham could start in here and Jones could start here, because again, power, carrying, all of these things. So it's really, really interesting to see what we do with this team. I would expect the first game to be this. This would be my guess. If I had to guess the starting 11, I'm really torn on Burn or Colwill, but I'm going to stick with Burn based on what I've said in this video. This is what I think we'll see for the first game. I think we're definitely going to see quite a bit of Rodgers, like maybe a start in the second game. I think Rashford, I think Jones, I think Skelly and who else did I say? Skelly and Walker, both of them, but definitely Skelly because again, I think he really plays into this this aggressive sort of can come into these midfield areas, win the ball back, and then drive forward and just be really dual heavy energy and those one-off actions that get the crowd up on their feet. He's got that about him. He's got that personality too, and I think Tuchel's going to really like that about Skelly. And this is only the squad we've got available, right? You've got to think there's so many people to come back. You've got Hall, you've got Trent, you've got Saka, you've got Palmer. So many people I'm not even remembering. I mean, defenders, I think Maguire will be a part of this team. Maybe not to start, but I think he'll be in the squads over someone like a Quansah. I think Branthwaite eventually. There's so much excitement in this team. And again, I think of this right-hand side is going to be interesting because obviously when Saka's back, you've got that dynamic. But Bowen's got a chance here to sort of prove in a similar way to Gordon's got the chance to prove that their dynamism is really going to be important for this England side, especially if you want to maximise someone like Harry Kane. So I'm going to leave it at that. Let me know any questions you have about Tuchel's England side. This is all theory at the minute because his first game is tomorrow. Once that first game has been played, I'm going to straight away get on and create a video talking about what actually happened, see how similar to all this was, see how it sort of links to what we've heard from him, what we actually see on the pitch, and we're going to sort of discuss and speak all things tactics and the mentality and everything about all the players, how they performed. So please do support the channel by leaving a like, leave any questions, tell me what you want to hear in the next video. I'll try and get to those questions in the next video once we've seen what this Tuchel side is about. And subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys after England have played their first game under Thomas Tuchel.